In today's world, communication can be incredibly complex. We live in an age where our interactions are often shaped by external pressures, distractions, and misunderstandings. While communication is meant to be a tool for understanding and connection, it can frequently lead to conflict, frustration, and emotional strain. The challenge of communication arises not only from the difficulty of expressing ourselves clearly, but also from the increasingly divisive nature of the world around us. Every conversation has the potential to be misinterpreted, especially in an era of instant messages, social media, and rapid-fire exchanges. We often find ourselves explaining ourselves, defending our positions, or justifying our actions, when sometimes our words do little to bridge the gap between us and others. The complexity of communication is further compounded by the diverse perspectives, experiences, and beliefs that people bring to every interaction. Even when we communicate with the best of intentions, there can be barriers that prevent others from truly understanding us. These barriers can be emotional, cultural, or even spiritual in nature. People may be unable to see our point of view because they are influenced by preconceived notions, personal biases, or unresolved inner conflicts. As a result, we often find ourselves frustrated, exhausted, and unable to convey our true selves. In this environment, the challenge is knowing when it is worth engaging in communication and when it is better to remain silent. The modern world demands constant communication, but there are times when speaking our truth may not be productive, especially if we are trying to explain ourselves to those who are not open to hearing us. It becomes a delicate balance knowing when to speak up for clarity and when to hold back for the sake of our emotional and spiritual well-being. The key is understanding that not every situation demands an explanation, and not everyone is deserving of our energy or attention. Sometimes the greatest strength lies in silence, in trusting that our actions will speak louder than words. Understanding spiritual influences is crucial in recognizing how external forces can shape our interactions and perceptions. The case of Mary Magdalene serves as a poignant example of how a person's worth, intentions, and actions can be misunderstood or misjudged by others due to spiritual forces at play. Mary Magdalene, despite her pure heart and commitment to spiritual truth, was often portrayed in a negative light due to the influence of societal judgment and spiritual warfare. Her story exemplifies the deep challenges one faces when their true intentions are obscured by misconceptions, prejudices, or spiritual forces that cloud the perception of others. The idea that spiritual influences can affect how people view and respond to you is important to understand, especially in a world where judgment and negativity can come from unexpected sources. Just as Mary Magdalene was misunderstood by the people around her, we too may face situations where our actions and words are taken out of context or twisted by external forces. These forces may be negative energies, societal expectations, or even the inner turmoil that others project onto us. People often act from their own fears, insecurities, or unresolved spiritual wounds, which can distort their perception of us. When we attempt to explain ourselves to those who are under the influence of these spiritual forces, we may be engaging in a futile battle. Their understanding is clouded by their own unresolved issues or spiritual struggles, which makes it impossible for them to truly comprehend our intentions. This is why it is so important to recognize when someone's judgment is rooted in spiritual misunderstanding rather than genuine concern or insight. In these cases, no amount of explanation or justification will change their perception, as it is not based on reality but on spiritual and emotional the presence of these influences. We can better navigate our interactions with others. We can choose to respond with empathy, compassion, and understanding without feeling the need to defend ourselves or explain our actions to those who are unable or unwilling to understand. This awareness allows us to protect our energy and focus on the battles that truly matter, rather than getting caught in a cycle of spiritual confusion and emotional exhaustion. The dangers of justification are often overlooked, but constantly explaining or defending ourselves can open the door to negative energy and unnecessary conflict. When we feel the need to justify our actions, we are essentially giving others power over our emotions and thoughts. Justification often stems from a desire for approval or acceptance from those around us. But in doing so, we risk giving our energy to those who may not have our best interests at heart. This is especially true when we try to explain ourselves to individuals who are already influenced by negativity or who are intent on misunderstanding us. By justifying ourselves, we provide a foothold for the enemy, whether that enemy is an external force, negative influences, or our own internal doubts. Justification weakens our boundaries and allows others to dictate the narrative of our lives. When we feel the need to explain our actions or decisions to others, we open ourselves up to criticism, manipulation, and misinterpretation. This often leads to frustration and emotional fatigue as we try to convince others of our worth or validity. Furthermore, constant justification can erode our self-confidence. We begin to doubt ourselves, wondering if we are doing the right thing or if our decisions are truly justified. This internal conflict takes a toll on our mental and emotional well-being. The more we explain ourselves, the more we risk losing touch with our own sense of clarity. Instead of justifying our actions, it is important to focus on living in alignment with our values and beliefs. We must trust that our decisions are guided by a deeper understanding of who we are and what we stand for. By doing so, we stop seeking validation from others and instead find strength in our own convictions. When we stop explaining ourselves to those who are not receptive or understanding, we take back control over our narrative and regain our peace of mind. The emotional toll of misunderstanding is one of the most draining aspects of human interaction. When we communicate our thoughts and intentions, we naturally hope to be understood. But what happens when that doesn't occur? Misunderstanding can create a dissonance between our internal world and the way others perceive us, leading to frustration and emotional exhaustion. The constant need to correct, clarify, or defend ourselves can be overwhelming, leaving us mentally and emotionally drained. It can also stir feelings of isolation, as we may begin to feel as though no one truly understands our struggles, intentions, or the reasons behind our actions. The emotional toll is not limited to just the immediate frustration of being misunderstood, but it extends to the long-term effects on our emotional health. Repeated misunderstandings can chip away at our self-esteem, making us question our own abilities to communicate effectively. It can cause us to second-guess our decisions or even feel disconnected from our own sense of self. Over time, this constant emotional drain can lead to burnout, where we feel exhausted not only from the effort of communication, but from trying to navigate through the labyrinth of others' judgments and misinterpretations. Furthermore, misunderstandings often arise from a lack of empathy or willingness to understand one another's perspectives. When people fail to see things from our point of view, it's easy to feel invalidated, as though our thoughts and feelings do not matter. This emotional neglect, whether intentional or unintentional, can be incredibly hurtful. As human beings, we have a deep need to be seen, heard, and understood. When this need is not met, it can trigger feelings of emotional loneliness, even if we are surrounded by others. It is essential to recognize the signs of emotional exhaustion that come from being misunderstood. If we find ourselves repeatedly trying to explain ourselves to others who are not receptive, it can be an indication that we are expending unnecessary emotional energy. This constant effort takes a toll on our mental clarity and our ability to stay grounded. Acknowledging the emotional toll of misunderstanding can help us make better decisions about how and when to engage in communication, and when it may be more beneficial to step back and preserve our emotional well-being. The power of silence is often underestimated in a world that values constant communication. When faced with misunderstandings or negative influences, silence becomes not just a form of retreat, but a strategic weapon of trust and strength. In moments of conflict, instead of rushing to explain ourselves, silence allows us to maintain control over our emotions and preserve our inner peace. It demonstrates a powerful restraint, showing that we do not need to justify ourselves to anyone who is not open to understanding our truth. Silence also represents trust in ourselves and in the process. It is an acknowledgement that we do not need external validation to know that we are on the right path. When we remain silent in the face of accusations or misunderstandings, we are affirming our trust in our own choices and actions. This quiet confidence can be far more impactful than any words could ever be. Rather than engaging in fruitless arguments or trying to convince others of our worth, we let our actions speak for themselves. Moreover, silence allows us to preserve our energy. Engaging in unnecessary explanations or justifications can be draining, especially when we are trying to communicate with those who are not receptive. Instead of depleting ourselves, silence enables us to conserve our emotional resources for more meaningful pursuits. It's also a powerful reminder that we don't owe an explanation to anyone unless they are truly open to understanding. In this sense, silence is not passive but active, a conscious choice to protect our well-being and maintain our peace. It's a form of spiritual strength that shields us from the chaos around us and keeps us focused on our greater purpose. Fighting the right battle is essential for maintaining our energy, focus, and emotional well-being. Not every conflict or misunderstanding is worth engaging in, especially when we are dealing with people who are not open to understanding our perspective. The real battle is often not external but internal, knowing when to hold our ground and when to step back and let go. It is easy to get caught up in personal conflicts and misunderstandings, but it's crucial to recognize when we are fighting a battle that is not worth our time or energy. Spiritual warfare is often far more significant than personal conflicts. While we might be tempted to engage in heated arguments or try to convince others of our point of view, we must first recognize whether the situation is truly a matter of principle or simply an emotional reaction. If the conflict is born from misunderstandings, insecurities, or negativity that has nothing to do with our core values, it is not a battle we need to fight. Fighting for our peace means knowing when to disengage and when to stand firm in our truth without getting caught up in irrelevant disputes. Personal conflicts often arise when others project their issues, fears, or anger onto us. When we engage in these conflicts, we may find ourselves drained, feeling like we are fighting an invisible battle that does not bring us closer to our goals. The real challenge lies in discerning which conflicts are aligned with our purpose and which ones are simply distractions. When we understand that spiritual warfare takes precedence over personal conflicts, we gain clarity in our decision-making. Instead of expending our energy on battles that will only leave us frustrated and exhausted, we focus on the struggles that truly matter, those that align with our values, purpose, and higher calling. Recognizing the difference between personal battles and spiritual ones allows us to prioritize our energy wisely and avoid wasting it on unnecessary conflict. This strategic approach not only protects our peace but also empowers us to fight for what truly matters in our lives. The wisdom of restraint is essential when deciding when not to engage in a conversation or conflict. It requires understanding that not every situation warrants a response, and not every disagreement deserves our attention. When we choose restraint, we practice discernment, recognizing that engaging with certain individuals or situations may only escalate tensions or drain our energy without leading to a productive outcome. Restraint doesn't mean weakness, rather, it is a sign of emotional intelligence and inner strength. It shows that we are in control of our reactions and choose to preserve our peace, rather than get involved in unnecessary drama or conflict. Sometimes the best course of action is to remain silent and allow the situation to pass. Not every misunderstanding requires clarification, and not every opinion needs to be challenged. By practicing restraint, we avoid getting caught in cycles of defense and justification. We understand that engaging with people who are not ready or willing to listen only creates more conflict. Restraint gives us the space to preserve our energy and redirect it toward more meaningful pursuits. It is a reminder that we are not obligated to explain ourselves to everyone, especially those who are not open to understanding us. Listening as a form of strength is often overlooked, yet it is one of the most powerful tools we can use in any interaction. Instead of reacting impulsively or rushing to explain ourselves, taking the time to truly listen demonstrates patience, empathy, and discernment. When we listen deeply, we gain insight into the true concerns of others and their perspectives, rather than just responding to surface-level statements. It also allows us to maintain control over our emotions and decisions, as we are not quick to be swept up in reactions. Listening with intention doesn't mean we agree with everything being said, but it shows that we value the other person's point of view, even if it is different from our own. It also allows us to assess whether the conversation is worth engaging in, or if it is a futile attempt to defend ourselves. By listening, we gain the strength to decide when to speak and when to remain silent. It gives us the opportunity to respond thoughtfully, rather than react emotionally, which is key to maintaining peace in our interactions. True strength lies not in always having something to say, but in knowing when to listen and when to act. Trusting God in silence is one of the most profound and transformative practices in life. It requires surrendering control over situations and trusting that the higher power at work will fight our battles for us. In moments when we feel misunderstood, judged, or attacked, silence becomes an act of faith, allowing us to release our anxiety and stop trying to prove ourselves to others. When we trust God, we recognize that we are not alone in our struggles and that we don't need to engage in unnecessary conflicts to defend our worth or actions. Silence, in this context, becomes a form of prayer and reflection. By choosing to remain silent rather than react to the provocations of others, we invite divine intervention into the situation. Trusting God in these moments allows us to let go of our need for validation and approval. It is a reminder that our identity is not defined by others' perceptions, but by our inner connection to the divine. God's strength is greater than any human argument or conflict, and by trusting in His plan, we free ourselves from the pressure of constantly having to explain, justify, or defend our choices. We trust that God is guiding us and that, even when others misunderstand or criticize us, He is orchestrating something far greater in our lives. This silent trust allows us to focus on our spiritual growth, knowing that every situation will unfold according to His will. It empowers us to face challenges with grace and peace, confident that we do not have to fight our battles alone. Embracing silence as a path to peace and victory is one of the most profound practices we can cultivate in our lives. In a world that often values constant communication and outward validation, silence offers a powerful alternative. It is a path that leads us to inner peace, away from the noise and chaos of external opinions and judgments. When we choose to remain silent in the face of criticism, misunderstanding, or negativity, we are not simply avoiding conflict, we are actively choosing to preserve our peace. Silence is not what truly matters. It is a conscious, deliberate decision to avoid unnecessary engagement in situations that drain our emotional energy or distract us from our higher purpose. By embracing silence, we create space to reflect, to connect with our inner strength, and to listen to the wisdom that comes from within. It is in this quietness that we can hear our true thoughts and discern the best course of action, rather than reacting impulsively to every external influence. Choosing silence is also an act of spiritual strength. It signifies trust in the process and in the greater purpose unfolding in our lives. It is a recognition that we do not need to argue, explain, or defend ourselves to everyone. Our actions, our peace, and our purpose speak for themselves. In silence we find victory not by winning arguments or proving others wrong, but by staying true to our inner values and purpose. Silence brings clarity, peace, and the freedom to focus on what truly serves us, our growth, and our path toward fulfillment.